The terrifying last minutes of Lynyrd Skynyrd. October 17th, 1977 is the day Steel Survivors was released, an acclaimed platinum album that shot to the top 5 on the Billboard 100. From bangers like You Got That Right to the symphony What's Your Name, the album is one of the most successful of the band Lynyrd Skynyrd. However, the reason for its fame is not the wonderful music it contains, but a far more wicked truth. 2 days after the release of their album, Lynyrd Skynyrd played in Greenville Memorial Auditorium in Greenville, South Carolina. The audience was full of spirit, and the band was at its peak, ready to deliver the best to their fans. This passion was what led them to the next day, as they boarded a Convair CV-240 plane bound for Baton Rouge, where they would perform at Louisiana State University. But something was wrong. Firstly, the aircraft had been under investigation earlier for the possible use of another band, Aerosmith's, but was deemed unfit because neither the plane nor the crew were up to the standards of ensuring a professional and safe flight. Zunk Bucker, the assistant chief of flight operations of Aerosmith's, had reported the pilots McCreary and Gray sharing a bottle of Jack Daniels while he had been inspecting the plane for use. The band members were also at dispute with each other because of the aircraft, and there were many factors at play for that. Cassie Gaines, the backing vocalist of the band, was incredibly fearful of flying in the Convair and had voiced this by stating that she would rather travel in the band's cramped equipment truck than the plane. However, after much convincing, Van Zant made Cassie board the plane. Another member of the band's trio of backup singers, JoJo Billingsley, was not on the plane because of the hospitalization she had received dealing with health problems and substance abuse. She told him that she had dreamed of the plane crashing and phoned to beg the founding member Alan Collins to not use the Convair. It turns out she was right to worry because the plane ran out of fuel near the end of the flight. There had been signs of dangers early in the flight too. Witnesses recalled that the lead vocalist, Ronnie Van Zant, was resting on the floor with a pillow, having been awake most of the night and in need of rest. A few other passengers passed the time by playing cards. At some point, the passengers realized something was wrong, and drummer Artemis Pyle remembered visiting the flight deck and being urged by the scared captain, Walter McCreary, to return and strap himself down. With the gravity of the situation evident, the passengers sat quietly and some began praying. When the pilots realized that the jet had insufficient fuel, they attempted to fly to Macomb Airport, about 10 miles northeast of the ultimate crash site in Amite County, Mississippi, but quickly realized that they would not make it.
Center, Convair 55 Victor Mike.
55 Victor Mike, go ahead.
Yes, sir. We need an airport. Closest airport you got, sir.
As a final resort, they tried an emergency landing in an open field, around 300 yards away from where the jet crashed. Despite their efforts, at 6:52 p.m., the plane skimmed about 100 yards over the top of the tree line before colliding into a huge tree and breaking into pieces near Gillsburg, Mississippi.
Spiraled down, trying to lose altitude, find a place to land. And I thought he was going to make this field, and at the last minute I saw that it wasn't. Started clipping pine trees. And at that point I grabbed a blanket and braced myself and put the blanket over my face.
Guitarist Gary Rosington described hearing what sounded like 100 of baseball bats pounding the plane's fuselage as it began to strike trees. The sound became increasingly louder until Rosington was knocked unconscious. He awoke sometime later on the ground, the plane's door on top of him.
I woke up on the ground. I thought a plane door was on me because I couldn't move and get up.
Billy Powell, a keyboard player, nearly lost his nose in the incident, which also left him with severe face lacerations and significant lacerations on his right leg.
All I saw was treetops. I looked out my window. I was in the middle of the airplane on the right wing. I tried to get close to the back of the airplane as possible, but I got in the middle of the airplane on the right wing, and all I saw was treetops. And at first it wasn't so bad, but then when it hit the middle of the trees, it was horrible. It's an experience nobody wants to ever experience. Never.
Decades later, He recounted the flight's dying moments on a VH1 Behind the Music special, claiming that Van Zant, who was not wearing a seatbelt, was brutally ejected from his seat and died instantly when his skull struck a tree as the plane broke apart. Some aspects of Powell's tale, however, have been challenged by both drummer Powell and Van Zant widows Judy Van Zant Jenis, who posted the autopsy findings on the band's website in early 1998 while verifying others. Thankfully, while Powell had damaged ribs, he managed to leave the crash site and notify a nearby resident of the crash. Van Zant, the guitarist, Steve Gaines, the vocalist, Steve's sister Cassie Gaines, with her fears coming to life, assistant tour manager Dean Kilpatrick, Captain McCreary, and First Officer William John Gray were killed in the collision. The majority of the survivors were situated towards the back of the plane. The survivors, all of whom were critically injured, were taken to various hospitals for treatment and were not immediately notified of the fatalities. Rosington, for example, did not learn about Van Zant's death until days later, when his mother notified him in the hospital. Rescuers had to cross a 20-foot wide waist-deep creek and dig through an overgrown forest while extracting rescue vehicles that had become trapped in the muck. Locals assisted rescue personnel by driving casualties to the hospital in the back of pickup trucks. One neighborhood homeowner recounted, "I found someone alive on the ground. When I got to the other side of the plane, I tripped over someone."
Stuart Hemphill lives in Gillsburg. He saw the plane come over his house, and he called me as fire chief, said he called McComb, said a plane did crash.
Another homeowner praised the acts of everyone who helped, noting that some of them were out on the highway directing traffic. Some of them went home and purchased tractors. "My wife was home listening to a CB radio. I'm transmitting communications to her by CB, 10 miles away." The tragic voyage on October 20th, 1977 was supposed to be Lynyrd Skynyrd's final flight on the Convair. "We were flying in a plane that looked like it belonged to Clampett's family," Powell explained, and the band had determined that their reputation as one of the world's best rock acts deserved an upgrade. The band had intended to purchase a Learjet after arriving in Baton Rouge to replace the 30-year-old plane, which everyone in the band's circle acknowledged was long past its prime. Following the disaster, the National Transportation Safety Board disassembled, inspected, and tested the right engine ignition's magneto and determined that it was operating normally, noting that no mechanical or electrical discrepancies were found during the examination of the right magneto. The inspection also revealed that all of the fuel cross feed and fuel dump valves were in the closed position. Billy Powell, among others, reported witnessing flames pouring out on the plane's right engine on a flight 2 days before the tragedy. The NTSB's later report identified an engine malfunction of undetermined nature in the same engine as the contributing factor in the incident. Years later, in an interview with Howard Stern, Powell revealed that the fuel gauge in the older model plane was known to malfunction, and the pilots had failed to manually check the tanks before takeoff. Toxicology reports from both pilot autopsies revealed no evidence of alcohol or other substances. The incident was ultimately determined to be the result of a crew inattention to fuel supply. The National Transportation Safety Board stated that fuel exhaustion and total loss of power from both engines were the most likely cause of this disaster, due to the crew's inattention to fuel supply. Inadequate flight planning and an unexplained engine issue in the right engine contributed to fuel exhaustion, resulting in torching and higher than normal fuel consumption. According to the accident report, L&J firm owned and operated the aircraft, but the lease to Lynyrd Skynyrd's production firm stated that Lynyrd Skynyrd was the operator and thus responsible for regulatory compliance, including flight crew management. The flight crew was hired by a third party, and the lease was 3 weeks. The report states that the Federal Aviation Administration had taken legal action against L&J Company regarding operator responsibility, and the analysis section concludes by asking, how does the system in such a case protect a lessee who is uninformed either by design, inadvertence, or by his own carelessness? As the crash happened right after the release of Street Survivors, the record cover that featured the band encircled by fire seemed insensitive. As a result, following the plane disaster, MCA replaced the photograph with a new cover featuring the band against a plain-back background, as seen on the reverse of the original sleeve. The accident site has now been transformed into a memorial for fans, rescuers, and survivors, complete with an oak tree carved with Lynyrd Skynyrd iconography, and survivors and rescuers hold a 40th anniversary tribute there. In 2017, surviving band members and the family of those killed in the crash launched a lawsuit to prevent the production and distribution of the film Street Survivors, the true story of Lynyrd Skynyrd's plane crash. The issue across from the survivors taking a blood oath after the crash to not use the name Lynyrd Skynyrd again in an attempt to profit from the tragedy. The film made its debut at the Hollywood Reel Independent Film Festival on February 18, 2020.
Let me show you.
What the hell are you talking about? No, I've been on plenty of planes. That does not happen. Listen, do me a favor.
Go get him.
You get some rest, man.
Yes, thank you.
And that, viewers, describes how the terrifying last minutes of Lynyrd Skynyrd destroyed a music band at its height and where it led them. There could be a separate debate on what was truly the reason it ended this way. For example, the band's ex-guitarist, Ed King, stated that he always knew it wasn't going to end well for the band owing to their proclivity for drinking and brawling, but he could never have imagined it ending the way it did, and recalled being struck with regret upon learning of the accident. But whether it was the band's own disposition to carelessness, the wrongful decision of their founding member, or simply an ill stroke of fate is up for debate. What do you think was the real reason behind how Lynyrd Skynyrd ended? Do you think there are ways that we can establish to avoid similar instances happening to other rising talents? Comment below to discuss and subscribe to the channel for similar videos. Thank you.